If you're a social housing provider, for example a council or a housing association, then you might use some sort of asset management system, for example Keystone. And you're probably wondering, can you get data from our system into your current asset management system? Well, the answer is yes. We do offer, at the time of this recording, one-way integration with many of these systems. I'll just be clear what I mean there. So we can get data from our system into yours. That's generally no problem. But what we can't do is take data from your asset management system and bring it back into ours. This is just at the time of this recording. It may have come along since then. But if you do require that kind of two-way integration, then unfortunately it's not something we currently offer. However, if you do just need the one-way integration, which for many people is more than enough, then we can create a layout to help you to extract the data, or we can create a custom export script. That's the other alternative. So let me show you how this is done. I do have a spreadsheet here, which is sort of typical Keystone import spreadsheet that you might see. And you can see the headers here, they sort of tell you which data needs to be imported into that system. So what we can do is we can customize our templates in order to make sure that the correct data is being captured on site. And then we can map this data to the format that you need. So that goes for other asset management systems too. If you can export a spreadsheet like this one for Keystone or just something similar, then again we can just map our data to the data that's required. So I'm going to run through this Keystone example, and then I'm going to explain the process of how we would do one-way integration with other systems as well. So this is what we want to end up with, but we want this to be populated. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to show you here we've actually got this Keystone export layout which is currently selected. So in addition to the other layouts that you might have, management, refurbishment, demolition and so on, then on the asbestos survey template we can add this new layout which is just a Keystone export layout. Now you can change layouts as many times as you want throughout the duration of the job life cycle. So it could be that you export the data to Keystone and then you change the layout to something like management survey and you can view the full report. Now I've already got that Keystone export layout selected and I've actually got this open here. So this is what it will generate. And you can see it's just this big wide table, but the columns should map exactly to what we had in that Keystone import file. So the process would be to first of all generate this, check for any issues. Then we can click here to copy the table data. So this just copies the data to our clipboard. Jump over to the Keystone import file and I'm going to paste this in using Control V on my keyboard. And you can see here it has worked correctly. You know, we have insert here, which is one of the options in the drop down. The UPRN clearly looks like it's the right format and so on. So pretty simple. Select the relevant layout, which we often call Keystone Export or something like this. Press that copy table data button and then paste it into your import file. You can then import that file into the asset management system and you've now succeeded. This is exactly what you need to do. So the other way we can do this is to potentially create a custom export script. So it's kind of similar in the sense that it would create this file. However, there will be a button here which will say scripts. When you click on it, then it will give you the option to export the Keystone file. So it's not something we do very often, but we can do that instead, which might save a little bit of work. But the usual approach is like I've just shown you before. So what if you want something similar for another system? What if you don't use Keystone and use something else, or you do use Keystone but your format's different? Well, in those cases, what we would do is we would ask you to send a copy of the import file and ideally just maybe get on a call and talk about how it all works. If you are unsure about this, you might want to get someone from your end who is in the IT department to go through this with us. Once we have an understanding of the format required, we can then customize a template to make sure that the same data is being sent over. Now there might be certain restrictions on some fields. For example, only certain values might be accepted, in which case we might sort of change some input types from a text to a drop down or something like that to make it more restrictive on the app. but make sure that it is actually working on the import. So if we make it too flexible with just text boxes, sometimes that can cause issues on the validation on your asset management system. So this is something we'll work with you either as part of the onboarding, or later on you would deal with our support team and they can help you with this. So in summary, if you use an asset management system, then we can offer this one-way integration from our system to yours, but we can't bring it back in currently. If you're interested in this feature, please get in touch and we'll be happy to run you through everything.